Hi, I would like to do another video on some stuff that's really hard to grasp. I don't really expect too many people will watch this video, or they probably click away as soon as they find out. But these ideas are extremely complex, and you have to have a really good head on your shoulder. You have to have a good IQ, and also have some grasp of quantum mechanics, pretty good physics, a lot of math, and also have studied a lot of spiritual writings, or Bible, Quran, and other spiritual narratives. Uh, a lot of scientists, for example, Stephen Hawking, they come to conclusions or mathematical formulations that point in a radically different direction, but because they were brought up in a society that was thinking in a materialistic, dialectic manner about the world, or they were brought up to be reductionists, or they were brought up to be in practicing Newtonian mechanics, okay, or they were adherents of Rene Descartes. Anyhow, you get my drift. Uh, they they see this formulation is staring them in the face, and it's pointing out in a whole new different direction, but they are just incapable of coming to grasp with those ideas. And usually what happens is that they pass away, or they just leave the formulations right there, and somebody else comes in and picks it up and goes from there. Okay, in one of his books, Stephen Hawking said that our physical world is a three-dimensional surface of a 10-dimensional manifold, a Riemannian manifold, or a membrane, which means that the world is more than 3 dimensions. What we see is like a projection of something that happens elsewhere in this membrane, and we perceive it as a 3-dimensional world. Sufi master, he said that he thinks that the world is like a screen of a cinema, and all the actors, they think that, oh, we are interacting with each other, there is forces and molecules, and they attract and repel each other, and there is electromagnetic waves, and there's all these pixels, and there's all these actors, they're doing things, and they're in relationship with each other. But that's not true. The truth is that the whole thing is coming out from the projector, and it's falling into this surface. Okay, so if we take that assertion as a fact, uh, we ought to think as ourselves as a projection of greater beings. Okay, there's nothing wrong with extending these ideas into spiritual realms, because there's nothing to stop us. There's no law or no formula that says you can't do this. Reductionist methods, they work to a certain length scale, but below that, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle takes over, and you cannot really use reductionist methods to predict the motion of a particle or the action that will happen in the future, because there is an element of uncertainty, as if there is yet an underlying fabric of reality that's underneath, it has its own mechanism, it has its own consciousness, and it decides how it wants to project itself, and so it decides this chance. We are looking at the surface, and underneath the surface there is all these other things going on, and I posit that the universe is quantum computer, and it's conscious, and it 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 wants to project itself like this in our epoch, in our timeline from the time of Big Bang to now. Okay, it projects itself, and if you give a particle extra energy and make it, break it up and do this and that, all these virtual particles will surround it and force it back into stable particles again. This is a form of thinking. This is a form of forcing a certain view, a view of higher consciousness. Okay, what I think the universe is really consciousness that is projecting itself in this manner, and there are other theories and ideas that really point in this direction. One other idea that's very troublesome to physicists is the what they call it, the entanglement of particles. Okay, see, for example, for reductionist methods, Newtonian mechanics to work, a good physicist will take a control volume of an area or a volume or a surface, and will look at all the forces and interactions that go on in that control volume, and he would write partial differential equations. At the end, you'll have a set of partial differential equations, and this way you can model even the interior of a star. Okay, by solving these partial differential equations and the constraint equations using difference equations in the computer and different algorithms, you can get a good idea of how the flow of this creature will be in time. Okay, but as the length scale decreases and you go lower and lower and you get into the fabric of the universe, into the space itself, there is a lot more going on. There is virtual particles, there is particles that you never even thought they existed, and they are the one in this massive machinery that's underlying, that's doing all the work, and then it jumps up at higher scale as something that the Newtonian mechanics or reductionist philosophies can model. But this model is false. It's just like looking at the pixels on the cinema screen and thinking that this pretty girl, she really loves the actor, but she doesn't exist. She's just the pixels. All the pixels come from the projector. Okay, it's really the underlying projector that's telling these stories. Okay, if we extend these ideas, and some physicists they have extended them as the anthropomorphic principle, then we see that the conscious beings and or other creatures or beings that may be in other solar systems, they are an offspring of this underlying universal consciousness, and this is not a very strange idea. This is quite natural, that follows from all the past reasoning. Okay, this is not spirituality. This is still in quantum mechanics. So this assertion, we can extend it and say that we as human beings, we are also projection of this universal consciousness. We are what it wants to present. Or I could say it in a different way, is that this universal consciousness, whatever you want to call it, or him or her, is trying to experience itself is trying to experience every level of consciousness that he has, from the very lowest or what it has to the highest level. And the beings that discover this connection to this universal consciousness become special in a sense, because they did something that nobody else could do, because everybody else looks at the other characters in the screen, but this individual, say Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, whoever you want, Buddha, he looked in and saw this connection that hey, there is more here than there's out there. Okay, these are really important philosophical ideas. And the other thing is that points in this direction is that that's the old expression, all roads end in Rome. That means that if you study any subject and you study really deeply, okay, you are going to come to its spiritual side. If you study physics, quantum mechanics, you're going to come into its spiritual side. If you study mathematics, it's just the same. Well, looking at the sayings of prophets, you see there is a lot of correspondence. For example, in the Islamic tradition, the Prophet said that the Bashariyat is the Tofail of Hasti, which means like the humanity is the like offspring of the creation. Christianity has the representation of the Father and the Son. Like the Son is like a creation of the Father, and in other traditions they talk about manifestations or beings that are manifestations of life. So these concepts are not strange or new. We are constantly encounter them in different realms, and but I want to model many of these spiritual experiences I've had in relationship to this view of looking at it. Looking at it, this being discovers that the projector and communes with it, and this is really the meaning of a spiritual journey that many traditions talk about. Anyhow, this subject is very complex. There's a lot of stuff. Every time I talk about this, then later on I remember that there's a whole bunch of other stuff I didn't talk about. But so maybe next videos we'll go over some of these ideas. All right, thank you.